So in this video, we're going to go over how to create a Google Classroom. So the first thing you want to do is go to classroom.google.com. Yours will probably be blank when you first go into it if you don't have any classes made. You can also get to it through, I don't know what this menu is called, this little 9x9 or 3x3 makes 9. If you go into here and you scroll down a little bit, I think, Google Classroom will be within that group somewhere. Anyway, the first thing you'd want to do is just hit the plus button, and then you're going to create a class. Students would want to join, teachers would create. And so you're going to get these options here. Options are like your class name. I have found, at least from my first year to my second, putting in the year that class was taught helps. So if this is for next year, 20 to 21, because otherwise I have a bunch of, because I like to use a new class every year. So I like to put in the year specifically. Otherwise, it's all 8th grade science, for example. For this section, that's where I put, like for me, I just do like the core 1, 2, 3. You don't have to fill actually, but anything out besides the name, I just prefer to. If you fill out the subject, it'll give you basically these banners I'll talk about here in a second. It'll kind of pre-fill one in for you, FYI. The room number really doesn't, I don't even know if it appears anywhere. Anyway, hit save and it makes your class. Okay, so now that we're in our class, you can see a couple of things. You got your title, you have your core. It shows the class code, which I'll go into here in a second. And there's also a new feature where you can have a Google Meet link specifically for your Google Classroom. I found personally during this whole COVID break, I didn't really like that. Just because I had like a scheduled meeting with my advisement students in that case, and I wanted them to use that Google Meet link, and I couldn't figure out a way to use the one that's in here in the calendar invite scheduled one. So I don't know. I'd rather just use a calendar invite because that's just kind of the way I think. Anyway, so when I think of Google Classroom, I kind of view it, at least in the students' minds, I view it as having like two sides. And so the first side, this is kind of your more front-facing side. This is like, I don't know, it's kind of like the wall on Facebook. It's where all the posts are shared. And so just like on like a social network, you can make a post. You can do it for multiple classes. So I like to use this if I'm posting, like I generally post their bell work. And so I like to do that for if I'm doing it for all my 4 8th grade science classes that I was teaching. You can click on multiple. The other cool thing that you can do, like let's say I want to post something and I only want maybe 1 or 2 students to do it. If you click on all students, actually, let me show you one from this year that actually has kids in it still. This is a post from before the COVID break. And this is how I did my bell work. You don't have to use it for whatever you want, but this is something that the kids will see right when they log in, and it's whatever you post is generally always at the top. You can move them around. Like I can move this to the top if I wanted to do something out of order. And like when you make a post, let me show you to do that. Like I was saying, you can do it for different students. So if I didn't want every kid to see it, maybe just a couple, I can click on that and make that a thing. But you could, basically this is like a text box that you can put stuff. And then you can also add links. So you wouldn't share per se something you want to be an assignment like a Google Doc here, because it's not going to make a copy for all the kids. I'll show you how to do that later. That's on the other side. But like I shared, I always had kids do like a Google form. And so I would share the link to that here. Or if I want them to watch a YouTube video, I could do that here. Or something that I want them to view but not edit, that could be the file or Google Drive. But you basically, if you're trying to give them a document and you want to make copies, do not use a post for that. Okay, the other side of Google Classroom is what I think of, at least in my mind, is the classwork side that the kids can see. Again, you have that Google Meet thing there. I would ignore that right now. The calendar syncs up to the assignment. So like when I was making due dates on these assignments, it has a Google Calendar just for that class. I usually ignore those, but sometimes it's nice for kids to see due dates on a physical calendar, or not physical, be a digital calendar. And the other cool thing about Google Drive, or Google Classroom, sorry, is that it makes a class drive folder. So when you first make your first Google Classroom, you're going to see a folder called Google Classroom in your drive. Don't touch it, don't delete it, nothing. You can just kind of ignore it because it's going to make, basically, this is where all the assignments, the student assignments are going to go when you assign somebody to them, and it makes copies. It's all going to live here, but you don't really have to view it ever here. You just kind of view it within here, and I'll show you that in a later video. So don't touch this folder. Okay, this is the other side. Sorry, I want to kind of go through this, and I'll go through this probably more in depth, but this is the other side, is the classwork. And I'll go through that in a different video because I think it's really important. The other two that teachers can see is people. This is one way you can add students. So you can just hit plus and you can invite them just by typing in their email, and then it will find us because we're all in the same domain. You can also add co-teachers. So if you co-teach something, you can do that, and then you have the same viewing access. The other way to add students, like I said earlier, was this code. And so they can go to Google Classroom. They would hit that plus button just like you did to create it, but instead they would hit join, and then they type in this code, and then they can add themselves to your class. You can also make it really big. That's a new feature as of recently. And then the other one teachers have is this grades. So it kind of has like a rudimentary grade book. So I don't know. These are all the COVID, so don't judge me for all the missing work. Or my kids, I guess. But you can see basically the grades I put in. I'll show you what the grading view looks like. And this is where this all kind of lives, and then I can look at it. So that's basically how to set up a Google Classroom.